whether
he's changed the CV. He's changed his LinkedIn. He's admitted that he made a mistake. The government have said that he will probably be sorry for having done it. So I don't think there's any doubt that it's happened. The question is what happens to him now.
Yeah.
Keir Starmer is facing a political storm unlike any he has encountered before, and the cracks in his leadership are beginning to show. Newly leaked evidence has surfaced, exposing a series of scandals that threaten to unravel not just his credibility, but the entire Labour Party's standing. This isn't just a bad day at the office for Starmer. It's a full-blown crisis that has left him spiraling out of control. The revelations are so shocking that they've sent shockwaves through Westminster, leaving even his staunchest allies scrambling for cover. At the heart of it all is a name you might not have heard before: Jonathan Reynolds.
And let's talk to Kevin Hollingray now, who's the MP, of course, and Shadow Business Secretary as well. Kevin, a very good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning, mate.
Good to see you. I mean, your opposite number's in a bit of shtuck, isn't he? Thinks he was a solicitor, suddenly remembered he wasn't, and so now his CV has been changed.
Well, just to clarify, I'm actually Shadow Housing Communities Local Government and Levelling Up.
Oh, sorry.
So he's not my opposite number, but he was my opposite number when I was Post Office Minister.
Reynolds Starmer's Shadow Business Secretary has been caught in a web of deception that stretches back years. The scandal: he's been falsely claiming to be a solicitor, a title he has no right to use. This isn't a harmless exaggeration. It's a potential criminal offense under Section 17 of the Legal Services Act 2007. The implications are staggering. Reynolds, a senior figure in Starmer's shadow cabinet, has been masquerading as a qualified legal professional, and the fallout is threatening. Starmer's leadership.
But it appears he's made a very significant error here, and he's clearly got a case to answer, and he's got a right to reply, of course, but you cannot mislead Parliament and without there being consequences of doing that. And I think if he has said he's something that he's not, that's not right. If he said it on the floor of the House, and there will be consequences that flow from that.
The story gets even more bizarre. Back in 2004, Reynolds stood in the House of Commons and boldly declared that he had worked as a solicitor in Manchester city centre. It was a brazen claim, one that went unchallenged for years. But here's the kicker. The Solicitors Regulation Authority actually investigated Reynolds' claims at the time, but closed the case without taking any action, stating that the matter had been corrected. Now the SRA has reopened the investigation, citing further information that has come to light. This raises serious questions about Reynolds' honesty and integrity, and by extension Starmer's judgment in appointing him to such a high-profile role.
That he did say it on the floor of the House, that he has said it on several occasions. Yep. He's even given an interview to the effect that he said he chose the career as an MP because it would be better for his family life than being a solicitor. I mean, this has been going on now for some time. It was 2010, I think, when it first appeared that he had worked as a solicitor. And is there not surely some kind of breaching of parliamentary code or ministerial code of some?
A former barrister himself, Starmer has remained conspicuously silent on the matter. His silence speaks volumes. Is he protecting Reynolds? Or is he simply hoping the scandal will fade away if he ignores it long enough? Either way, it's a terrible look for a man who has built his political career on a reputation for integrity and competence. Tory MP Andrew Griffith has called for an investigation accusing Reynolds of knowingly misleading the public, a clear violation of the ministerial code. Even legal experts have weighed in, describing Reynolds' behavior as morally wrong and a breach of public trust.
The business secretary was told to stop claiming he was a solicitor on his CV by the lawyers watchdog. Again, if you turn around and say, I'm a solicitor when you're not a solicitor, you then get barred from becoming a solicitor. But he stood in Parliament and said, back in the days when I was a solicitor in Manchester, far harder lifestyle than this as an MP.
The Reynolds scandal is just the tip of the iceberg. Labour's problems run much deeper. The party is embroiled in a series of controversies that paint a picture of a leadership in disarray. From shadow ministers falsely claiming professional credentials, to MPs making inflammatory statements, it seems like honesty and integrity have become optional in Starmer's Labour Party. And then there's the issue of broken promises. Remember Labour's pledge not to raise taxes on working people? That promise is now in tatters, with Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves reportedly considering a series of tax hikes that would hit ordinary Britons hard.
First of all, who makes out like being an MP is like, oh yeah, it's coasting this is easy. That's not exactly going to win you favour. But at the same time, this is lying in Parliament. And I would suggest, given the amount of flack that Boris Johnson got for being a serial liar, a fibber, an embellisher, an exaggerator, then given what they got him for, the petard from which he was hung, was basically, did he have cake, did he not have cake, and how long was he in a room inside his own blimmin' building where he worked anyway? Frankly, this stuff, I'd say, if you can get done for being 10 minutes inside a room of staff that you were in and have to be in as part of your job, but all of a sudden cake was or was not added, and that is the defining factor of whether you stop being Prime Minister, lying in front of Parliament that you are a solicitor, lying on your CV about the experience you had when you become Chancellor, I think is a bit bigger than blimmin' did you.
The proposed tax increases are nothing short of a betrayal. Reeves is reportedly eyeing higher national insurance contributions for employers, a move that would inevitably lead to higher costs for workers, but it doesn't stop there. Labour is also considering cuts to support for pensioners, including the winter fuel allowance. These are people who have worked their entire lives only to face the prospect of being pushed into poverty by Labour's policies. Tory MP Kevin Hollinrake has accused Labour of prioritising unions and foreign aid over the needs of British pensioners, and it's hard to disagree. The party seems to have lost sight of who it's supposed to represent.
Louise Haigh, who essentially lied by not telling the public that she was a convicted fraudster, so she actually had to go as Transport Secretary. This cabinet is full of liars, including Jonathan Reynolds.
Meanwhile, Starmer is nowhere to be found. He has left Reeves to take the heat, a move that has only fueled speculation about his leadership capabilities. A true leader would step up and address the concerns head-on, but Starmer seems content to stay. In the shadows, it's a cowardly approach, and it's costing him dearly in the polls. Labour MPs are growing increasingly nervous, aware that the party's credibility is hanging by a thread. Voters are losing trust, and once that trust is gone, it's almost impossible to win back.
This is him speaking in the House of Commons, in the Commons. Take this away, go on.
Before the last election, I worked as a solicitor in Manchester city centre, and I would travel in to Manchester every day for what is now my constituency.
Well, he's lost a lot of hair and grown a beard, but there he is lying.
But the scandals don't end there. Starmer's approach to Brexit has also come under fire. Despite claiming to respect the result of the 2016 referendum, he's been quietly working to align the UK more closely with EU regulations. This includes secret talks with Brussels on issues like food standards and climate change. The most controversial aspect is that Starmer is reportedly considering putting the UK back under the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice. It's a move that has infuriated Brexit supporters who see it as a betrayal of the country's hard-won independence.
Lying to Parliament about being a solicitor. That's quite a serious thing. You can't lie to the House. Now, I think that this shouldn't just be left alone. I mean, you must at the very least make a public apology about this. And if I was Keir Starmer, I'd think about firing him. I mean, the amount of liars in the cabinet, this is serious stuff. And there he is lying to Parliament. What do you think?
I agree. This guy is a fraud. I think it's kind of sad that he felt the need to do that.
Lord Frost, the architect of the Brexit deal, has been particularly scathing in his criticism. He's accused Starmer of selling out the UK's self-government to a foreign court, a damning indictment from someone who knows the intricacies of the negotiations. Starmer's actions suggest a leader who is more interested in appeasing Brussels than standing up for British interests. It's a stark contrast to the image he tried to project during the election campaign, and it's costing him support among key voter groups.
Well, if he just said, before I came to this place, I was training as a solicitor. You know, what's wrong with that? Why are these people so lacking in self-confidence, or why do they think their credentials are so weak that they have to spin them up in that way? I mean, maybe their CVs are pretty crap and they need to spin them up to be a bit more impressive. But
the backlash has been swift and brutal. Starmer's approval ratings are in freefall, with some polls showing Reform UK overtaking Labour in popularity. It's an unprecedented situation for an opposition leader, and it underscores the depth of the crisis facing the party. Voters are using words like incompetent and dishonest to describe Starmer, and it's hard to argue with their assessment. The Labour Party is in disarray, and Starmer's inability to get a grip on the situation is only making things worse.
Less impressive, is there, than being caught out in this way and being exposed as he has been. I think it's tremendously embarrassing, and it's just mendacious in the end. I think that's quite an extraordinary thing to do, and it's a problem across many professions. A real concern about it in relation, now and again, serious cases come up in the NHS of doctors who claim to have who actually turn out to be fake doctors. It's not at all on.
But the problems don't stop at Starmer's leadership. There's a growing sense that the entire political system is broken. Trust in politicians is at an all-time low, and scandals like the one engulfing Labour are only fueling the public's disillusionment. People are tired of broken promises, tired of being lied to, and tired of leaders who seem more interested in playing political games than addressing the real issues facing the country. Starmer's plummeting popularity is a symptom of a much larger problem, one that threatens to undermine the very foundations of our democracy.
That's private life. Politics is a different matter. These politicians, they get elected by constituents, by the people, on the back of who they tell their constituents they are. I'm a solicitor. I'm a man of great achievement. I was an economist for 50 years at the Bank of England, so on and so forth. Rachel from accounts lied through her teeth about her CV.
And then there's the issue of free speech in a country that prides itself on its democratic values. The erosion of civil liberties is deeply concerning. Recent cases of individuals being fined for silent prayer have sparked outrage, with many seeing it as a blatant violation of basic rights. The fact that a British Army veteran was fined for praying quietly outside an abortion clinic is a chilling reminder of how far we've strayed from the principles of freedom and tolerance. Labour's response to these incidents has been woefully inadequate, with figures like Jonathan Reynolds denying that any such violations are taking place. It's a tone-deaf response that only adds to the growing sense of alienation among the public.
For lying about being a solicitor. He said that he was a solicitor in Manchester. It's on his CV, it's on his LinkedIn profile, at least it was. It turns out he wasn't a solicitor. He trained to be a solicitor but never qualified. It transpires today that the sort of watchdog of the profession, the Solicitors Regulation Authority they're called, some time ago told him to stop saying he was a solicitor.